I care deeply about my work, and being the founder of a mental health care company means I value my own mental health well enough to know I can't always be working. Frankly, that was pretty hard when I was forced to work from home every single day. And so one of the lessons of this past year and a half is like, I need to find ways to separate work and home. And, a year ago, even 6 months ago, that meant having to keep my laptop in a very separate room and not permitting technology in my bedroom. Today, that means adding to my calendar things like stop working at 7 p.m., and which is, I think, a lot earlier than most founders would stop working. I'm not excellent at it, but I try. I think something that is very difficult to do as a founder is to separate your identity from your company. And I know that if I don't build milestones or forced mechanisms for me to ask myself that, I will get the two confused. So pretty early on at Reel, I built in quarterly check-ins with myself and only with myself, and had identified what are the questions I want to be asking myself every 3 months. And that includes, am I the right person to be running this company? That includes, am I happy doing this? Does this make me feel fulfilled? And what do I need to, whether it's, employees to hire to take on things that are on my plate, or frankly, space away from work. Building out that routine and identifying those questions before I was in the thick of Reel has been so valuable for me, because it really has allowed me to, it's really just regrounded myself in a Ariella pre-Reel and given me the space to breathe, the permission to see a world outside of Reel. That's just hard to do when you're founding a company, certainly hard when you're doing it in a pandemic. And I recommend for all founders to really build that into their schedules on a routine basis, and to do it separate of anyone else, because it's so hard to not feel biased by employees, advisors, investors. You need to remember, you're forming a relationship with yourself here, right? This isn't about other people. This is how do you want to live your life? And I make it a point to ask myself that regularly.
For me, being productive means that I need time to rest. A lot of entrepreneurs and founders don't talk about resting and sleeping. So for me, I have a ritual of keeping a period of a day to myself and the family. And that helps recharge me to allow me to be more productive in a day.
So I think setting constraints is really healthy and forced me to be more efficient. I have a software background. I studied computer science at San Diego State. And I think that using software and automating a lot of the things that we do, so have a bunch of Zaps set up in Zapier so that I can automate things like people looking at decks and things like that. Just having more information available and not having to manually do it has been really important. In terms of my routine, I think I could do more around creating time for myself in the morning. That's really important to me. Having time to read a book and have my morning cup of coffee and then jump into my inbox. And I also love to write, so carving out time for that has been really important. I'm noodling on what book 2 could be, so I'm excited for that. I think one of the hacks is always pausing and taking a moment to appreciate what's going on and tell myself you have enough time. There's no scarcity of time, even if it feels really overwhelming. Kind of going through are you hungry? Did you sleep well? Did you exercise? Did you drink water? All of these basic things that you can tend to forget about but are very important for anything else that you're doing.
So what helps me is something we do at Helena. We work on 2-week sprints, which helps with productivity because it gives us short, achievable milestones. And I think when you have such a big vision for how you want to change food and nutrition, which is what we're trying to do, you can't try to see the big picture every single day, and you have to have bite-sized pieces to get there. And so that's been really helping me in productivity, is knowing that we're not going to get the final answer right now, but we can chip away at it and get there slowly with our 2-week sprint. So that's the mental model that I use, small tasks to get to the big finish.
When it comes to technology that I use in my day-to-day life, I keep it pretty simple, actually. I use Sleep Cycle, which is an app that tracks my sleep and helps me just be more aware of when I'm not getting the amount of quality sleep I need, because I think that at the end of the day, sleep is at the core of anyone's productivity. And then I live and die by my calendar. Every single thing that I do is color-coded and documented, and I'm able to prepare well in advance for any given meeting that I have with a lot of detail. When it comes to more fun technology, the way that I keep in touch with some of my friends is frankly via Instagram, because I've got friends, I grew up in many different countries, and so I've got friends all over the world, and I found that given how busy I am running the company, it's hard to keep track of everyone. So it's one way for me to keep tabs on people that I love.
I was extremely unhealthy in the past few years. I'm actually starting to work out, which has been a big positive. There's two types of things that I have to accomplish in a day. There's things that drain my energy and things that replenish it, and I try to balance that. If I do too much of the things that drain my energy, it can tend to be very exhausting. And I can tell you, like when I used to do the regulatory things, I was constantly exhausted because that's all that we had to do for 2 years, and that was very energy draining because reading law, writing law, all these different things. Now I'm trying to balance that, between maybe like doing some regulatory stuff that's a bit more energy draining, but maybe talking to some team members, which is a little bit more replenishing, catching up with some of our execs or other members of the team. And, really finding that balance is, I think, one of the best ways of managing it.
Something I'm working on every day in therapy. I'm constantly thinking, I'm like, this week, I don't need to go to therapy. And then right before, I'm like, oh my God, my therapist couldn't get here soon enough. Like, I would be lying if I said I had it figured out. I think there's a misconception around podcasting that's like, oh, just once a week, throw it out. 7 days a week, I'm working on the podcast. And it's consuming. So I think for me, my struggle has been trying to find work-life balance. My boyfriend is like, do you remember who I am? And some days I'm like, no, daddy gang over everything. So like I would say I'm a workaholic, and I am really trying to learn the balance. So this is like so random. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I just started doing this thing where I find myself so in work mode some days, and then I'm like rushing off to a dinner, and I'm not the best version of myself because I'm still in work mode. So I've allotted at least 1 hour of time before I know I have to go to something social. Because if you're in work mode and then you have to go be social or like go talk to your mother-in-law or whoever, I'm not married, why did I just say that? Do you know what I'm saying? You need that time to like switch hats almost. So I've been doing that, and I find that I'm much more pleasant and able to converse and have a good time in public settings now. So I think it's just like knowing that if you are obsessed with your work, you need to find time to switch out of that role. Because I think it can become addicting, especially with my career. Like I see direct numbers, and it's hard to walk away from it. Also, social media never turns off. And I think that's something that creators are probably really struggling with managing. How do I put it down and detach for a minute? But it's making me money. It's how all of my listeners are waiting to hear from me on the next thing. Like I could be doing more. So I think I've also learned like more sometimes is shutting off for a minute, because then I'm gonna come back more refreshed, and I'll actually be giving them quality over quantity.